What has happened to Gabriel Martinelli? Has Gabriel Martinelli become both a problem for Arsenal and Mikel Arteta as we're fighting for the Premier League title? These are questions I ask myself every day, and if I'm completely honest, I've asked myself for a while. I mean, we're in the quarterfinals of the Champions League with it all to play for against Bayern Munich. I don't look at the league table, but allegedly Arsenal sit top of the Premier League table as we fight to win the first Premier League trophy both under Mikel Arteta and since we've moved to the Emirates Stadium. Do we have a problem with Gabriel Martinelli? It's fair to say after a superb 2023-24 campaign and signing a new deal off the back of that very campaign where, he scored a lot of goals and was part of a title challenge. This season in 2023-24 Premier League season, he has played 28 games, has 6 goals and 4 assists within the Premier League. In all comps, that changes to 5 assists and 10 goals. So what has gone on with Martinelli? I love the man. I mean, he's passionate, he's fearless, he's direct, he's tenacious, he's aggressive. He's obviously got that Samba flair. And despite Arsenal becoming his adopted home after failed trials at Barcelona and at Manchester United, and obviously making inroads at Etano after being released by Corinthians, or better yet, his family moving, he's a player that, despite being from Brazil, it's almost like he came through Hale End, if I'm completely honest with you. He's very passionate. He gets it. And he has been one of the bright sparks, in general, since we've done what we've done under Mikel Arteta. But also when times were bleak, when there wasn't a single reason, to be very honest with you lot, to be optimistic about Arsenal Football Club. Bukayo Saka, who's gone from strength to strength, Emil Smith-Rowe and Martinelli were also at his side. And now with Smith-Rowe, struggling and having his struggles off his own back, Martinelli doesn't quite face the same trials, but he has his own issues. Let's get into it. When you look at Arsenal's right-hand side, there is a lot of stability. Compare that to the left-hand side. And if I'm completely honest with you, the left-hand side of our team comes across as a revolving door. Granit Xhaka's departure is more devastating for Martinelli than many believe. I believe Timber, who would have been the long-term inverted left back, has thrown a spanner in the works for Martinelli. Zinchenko has been unable to have prolonged fitness in that regard. Tomiyasu has also been the same and struggled with injuries. Then you look at Kirill, who's come into the side and done relatively well, but you can see it's been a revolving door. Jorginho and Partey have not been able to stay fit, so Declan Rice can't be a consistent left 8. When you look at his heat map this season and last season, people, ever so slightly, it is the same, but he's not penetrating central areas as much. His defensive metrics have improved, but this is a reason for his form. People don't like to believe it, but football is a game about relationships. And again, look at the right-hand side with Benjamin White, Odegaard, and Bukayo Saka. We should also remember Gabriel Jesus, a fellow Brazilian of Martinelli, who they struck up a great relationship, as Gabriel Jesus would tend to peel out to the left-hand side, has also played a factor in this. That coupled with Kai Havertz, and take nothing away from Kai Havertz, he's been a quality player. But when you see his link-up play, he does pull out to the left-hand side and has provided the difference in that regards. But he tends to have a bias to the central regions, either occupying the centre-backs or dropping into midfield or pulling into the right-hand side. These are all factors that play a part in Martinelli's form. Another reason for Martinelli's struggles have to be injuries. There's no way around it. He has missed 44 days this season, 6 games. As you know, at the start of the season, he was nursing back an injury. He's currently getting back to fitness now. He's missed 44 days, 6 games off the back of the last couple of games he missed last season. This has played a part in his form, in my opinion. Now, where Martinelli is concerned, folks, ultimately, I think he's living and dying by the high standards he set since he joined the club, and also last season, in which he got 15 goals. Now, when you look at his statistics in the Premier League and his return, we cannot forget how old he is. He got 15 last season. He's got 6 goals in the Premier League at this moment in time, which at this moment and counting is his tied second best goal scoring season. So he's now trying to become a bit more cooler, calmer and calculated in his play, rather than relying on instinct. Of course, you've got to find that balance. Whether last season was an anomaly or whether that's him here to stay, who knows? What I would say is, as Arsenal get bigger and better and teams find ways to play against us, I love how Mikel Arteta is unpredictable in that regards because it helps us. People are going to set up against him. We see it with Bukayo Saka. They get tight to him. They kick him all over the park for 90 minutes, but he still finds a way to score. So could you argue it's a case of Martinelli needs to reinvent himself? I mean, how do you affect the game where, you know, you're not getting the ball in behind, you're not running in behind, there's not a lot of space on the transition for you to thrive? Because it doesn't matter if it's a compact game, if there's space, whether he has to go inside or go down the flanks, whether he has to use his left or his right, Bukayo Saka is still delivering the goods. And that's what Martinelli needs to do to go to the next level. I do think he's improved defensively. I know a lot of you remember when Mikel Arteta famously said he does things at 100 miles per hour. I do think he's kind of calming it down. And I never want Martinelli to kill who he is, this tenacious, aggressive, chaotic footballer, but you do have to find balance. How do you thrive when the game state is not ideal to your conditions and your strengths? I do look back to where Ramsdale and Jorginho says maybe he passes too much, and I would say, could he be a bit more demanding? Because if you go through our highlights season in, season out of this year, there has been times where somebody's gone for a shot or pass to the right or wrong person, and you can see Martinelli throw his arms up in a positive sense. So could it be argued he needs to probably be a bit more demanding on his teammates? I don't know, people, but I know the man himself has said he prefers to play on the left-hand side. He can play on the left, play on the right. I would like to see, maybe not this season, maybe not even next season, but sooner rather than later, I would love to see him play up front. I think he'd have to improve with his back to goal and his hold-up play in general, playing things like that. And I don't think he'll get to the level per se of Alexis Sanchez, but I think that would be what I'd want to make him. I'd want to make him exactly like Alexis Sanchez, specifically when he was a false nine. Now, I do think when you think of Alexis, there's a lot of comparables with Martinelli. However, I think one thing I've always maintained, people don't give Alexis Sanchez credit for his final ball, in which I think Martinelli would have to improve at. But I do think he's starting to play with his head up. I do think his general play is improving. And you have to argue, while it hasn't been the greatest of seasons for Gabriel Martinelli in terms of scoring and injuries, and we've gone through it with changes in the middle and defensive third, he still plays. So I have to accept that as he's one of the first names on Mikel Arteta's team sheet. So there has to be a positive, whether he's thriving or not, he's still the first choice left-sided winger or inside forward. So this is a combination of things I think is kind of plaguing Martinelli, if I'm honest with you. Now, I don't know about you lot, but my personal ending thoughts on Gabriel Martinelli are, buy the dip, folks. Buy the dip. Buy the dip. Form is temporary, class is permanent. And as much as I love Martinelli, and I think him and Saka should be our first choice wingers, this is why he's not to the level of Bukayo Saka, because his consistency in terms of numbers are not quite there. As probably discussed earlier, I think, beyond the obvious, I think Saka is better than Martinelli, even though I think Martinelli's potential is endless if he irons out a few rough patches. I think, one affordance that's been given to Bukayo Saka is stability in football. It is about relationships, folks. And I know it's not seen as the sexy thing in the modern day because it's all about spending money and buying players. But how do you think, beyond the obvious, Mikel Arteta has been able to put his own footballing stamp on things? Players have been here for a while. They've been playing with each other and stability has been promoted and they are improving. Saka is getting better year on year. Martin Odegaard the same. William Saliba the same. And many others, Gabriel, and we could be here all day. And even with that, people once upon a time said, Mikel Arteta needs to loan out Martinelli. Martinelli's not ready. Clearly, he improved in a certain regards. There's no doubt in Martinelli's quality, and I think the most important thing, of course, he's tenacious. He's a good dribbler. When he does do it, he's a great, he does great skills. You could argue while he might not be impressing in the final third, in the defensive third, he's been part of one of the best defensive units within world football. We didn't show that against Bayern Munich, but you still get the point. Above all, I think Gabriel Martinelli is resilient. He stands up in tough times. He doesn't let life decide life for him. He decides life on his terms, and you've seen him bounce back from a lot. He's obviously been part of some really high highs at Arsenal and some really low lows in a collective front, in line with how the last 2 seasons may or may not have panned out beyond the obvious. Of course, he had that penalty miss against Sporting Lisbon, and he's obviously had a massive injury. He's gone through a lot, really and truly, both in his personal life, moving from Brazil, having failed trials at Manchester United, Barcelona, his family really moving him out of Corinthians and him going to Etano, to signing for Arsenal at a turbulent period and seeing the transformation. There's no doubt of this man's quality, in my humble opinion. As I said, buy the dip, buy him at a low. If he was at a stock, a couple of sellers have sold their stocks. He's going to explode on this, people. But there's no point lying. There is a problem, and Martinelli is too good not to score goals. What that problem specifically is, I'm an Arsenal fan, I don't know. But fortunately for me, it's for something for Mikel Arteta and Gabriel Martinelli to sort out. Let me know your thoughts on Martinelli. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I know technically we just ended the video, but I forgot to add in, I welcome opinions, people. Make sure you're following on Twitter. And I found it quite intriguing and interesting, the varied opinions you're seeing on screen in relation to Martinelli. Clearly, I'm terrible at saying goodbyes, people, but it's never goodbye. It's goodbye for now. That's all I've got in relation to Mikel Arteta's player, Gabriel Martinelli. Smash the like button, comment, subscribe, check out the other videos, and most importantly, let me know your thoughts on Martinelli and what you believe may be the solution, whether that's him being dropped, whether that's him being sold, whether that's bringing in reinforcements, whether he would, benefit from another midfielder or consistencies in selection at left back. Let me know your thoughts, people. For real this time, appreciative to you lot tuned in. Peace.